After last week, can the Acolyte get worse? Let's find out.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
The Acolyte has dropped its 4th episode, and it's a lot like the other ones. Over the past week, the Acolyte has been one of the hottest topics online. Millions have rushed to social media to talk about the show. While very little of that is positive, people are still talking, which is exactly what Lucasfilm wants. Or that's what it seems to be. After episode 4 of the show, Acolyte viewers may stop talking about the show altogether. But, before we get into that, today's video is brought to you by the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs, and no, I'm not talking about Spaceballs 2, I'm talking about Stealing Solo asks the greatest what-if question of all time. What if a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in their basement? That, and a whole lot more, is answered in Stealing Solo, a Captain's Parody. Stealing Solo has been called Laugh Out Loud Funny and the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs, and it's available now for a limited time only. Go to stealingsolo.com, which is powered by Shopify, so you get the reward-winning safety and security, and get yourselves a copy today. Once we sell through this limited backstock, I'm going back to the drawing board to bring you the sequel, which parodies Luke Skywalker's fall from grace, and finally the closing chapter, which I can't wait to get to, Frankenfisher, the Bride of Solo. And yes, it's exactly what you think it is. So folks, the only way to get that is go to stealingsolo.com right now, get yourselves a copy, and enjoy the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs. Episode 4 of The Acolyte is titled Day, and it feels like it takes a day to get through this episode, but the worst part is, it doesn't go anywhere. We'll get to the summary in just a moment because it can be recapped in 2 sentences. The last 3 weeks of The Acolyte have been terribly boring. Star Wars isn't Star Trek. Star Wars isn't about bigger topics, it's space fantasy. It's action-packed. Now we have people who treat it like a religious text and take out the fun. The Acolyte is not fun. Disney Star Wars is not fun. It's a chore to watch this show, so be glad you didn't watch it this week. Here's the episode. May and her Sith overlord arrive on Kofar to kill the Wookiee Jedi. Osha and the rest of the Jedi arrive on planet Kofar as well to intercept May. 80% of the episode is walking through the jungle and talking. Then it ends. Here's a little more of an in-depth recap. The Acolyte Episode 4 brings us to the halfway point of the new Star Wars series. In it, May arrives on Kofar with Kimir, intending to kill Jedi Master Kelnaka. If she manages to kill the Jedi without using a weapon, she'll fulfill her promise to the mysterious Sith Master. If not, she'll be killed. Naturally, Sol is still after May and convinces May's twin Osha to accompany them. Sol and his team of the Jedi follow May to Kofar, but things don't go exactly as planned. I'd love to say that the Acolyte has found its groove and finally committed to the premise of exploring the Sith, but you saw this coming, it has not. Episode 4 is the most disappointing episode yet, mostly because not much happens. It's a very talky episode, and as soon as lightsabers are finally drawn, it comes to an abrupt end. I've already spoken about the series cast, but the further we move, the clearer it becomes that the writing in the Acolyte isn't on their level and not giving them enough to work with. Many of the series' scenes feel thematically empty, and the generic dialogue doesn't offer us any insight to any of the character motivations or their history. In fact, I'm a little unclear what the Acolyte is really about. Is it about May and Osha reuniting? Is it about May's turn to the dark side of the Force? By now, the narrative endgame should surely be clearer than what it is. Despite the acting, May's motivations are still shrouded in secrecy, and as the episode shows, May is a flimsy presence quick to change her mind. Meanwhile, Osha is perhaps the series' most passive character. Things seem to happen around her, despite her rather than because she's an active agent of the narrative. I'm also going to throw out a wild guess into the ether here. One that I've had since episode 1, but it's now strong enough to put out there. I'm calling it Manny Jacinto's Kimir is May's Sith Master. Leslie Headland and her showrunners have made Kimir into such an over-the-top bumbling fool, he feels like a very obvious misdirection. I still might be wrong, but we finally got a glimpse of the Sith at the end of this episode, and it's only Kimir who's missing from this scene. Last seen hanging by a tree from his ankles. Quick pause from the article. Last week, 2 weeks ago even, on the very first review of The Acolyte that we did live here on the channel at 10 p.m., resident guest script doctor called this right away. It's been obvious since the first episode. I won't sugarcoat it. This week's episode left a bad taste as The Acolyte continues to prove my biggest worries correctly. I'd argue The Acolyte seems to be repeating all of Obi-Wan Kenobi's mistakes. It's not utilizing a premise or setting, it's simply, all considered, a little dull. The episode ends on a highly intriguing note, and I'm trying to muster up enough excitement for next week's episode, but I fear it'll all be for nothing. I'm really hoping to be proven wrong here. And I won't sugarcoat it either. This show sucks. The biggest problem with this show is the structure. It feels as if the Acolyte is over. Everything's already been resolved. The mystery was never there. There weren't any red herrings. This isn't Agatha Christie. Hell, this isn't even a pup named Scooby-Doo. The Acolyte is limp. Nothing they throw at the audience feels earned because they haven't spent any time building up other characters. We know a little about Osha and May, but what about the rest? By the way, did you know they copied these Star Wars characters' names from a soap company? Yes, this is Osha May Soap out of Canada. The Star Wars show created by ladies for ladies has a character named after a soap company. How on brand. When I'm writing for the mainstream, I'm going to create characters called Axe, Body Armor, his twin brother Under Armour, and Jack Lynx, spelled Jaxlynx. Somehow that works better than what's here in the Acolyte. Maybe it's because the show takes itself too seriously, or maybe because the show is shit. It takes me out of the story when all the characters have stupid names like this. If the show were tongue-in-cheek like a 007 movie, then you could have names like Osha, May, and Pussy Galore. It would be funny, but the Acolyte takes itself so seriously, and the proponents of Disney Star Wars treat it like it's scripture. When you take the piss out of the Acolyte, these people and melt down. It's funny, but we're all left with crappy Star Wars, and we don't want that. I enjoy things that are traditionally considered dry, like British humor, a good gin, or this chick, but the Acolyte is the cure for insomnia. While I'm bored to tears with it, other fans are livid because the show breaks canon. The Acolyte just pissed all over the fandom last week, and they're doing it again this week. The Acolyte Episode 4 includes a major cameo from the wider Star Wars universe, causing audiences to continue the discourse over whether the show breaks canon. Since Episode 3 explored Osha and May's origins, divisiveness about the newest Star Wars TV series have hit an all-time high. This, combined with the apparent Sith resurgence in Star Wars High Republic era, is leading many fans to accuse the series of breaking canon. As it turns out, the Acolyte's Episode 4 ending is garnering a similar reaction. The Acolyte Episode 4 synth introduction is naturally diverting much attention of the fans, though the episode seems to include a secretive cameo from a major prequel trilogy character. That character is the same one who uttered a line in Star Wars Phantom Menace that the section of the fanbase were using as evidence to support the Acolyte breaking canon. Ki-Adi-Mundi, the prequel Jedi, appears in the Acolyte Episode 4, causing the canon-breaking arguments to rear their ugly heads once more. Now let's stop here because this article goes on to justify Ki-Adi-Mundi popping up, but I don't care what Screen Rant has to say because they're a shill website. What I do care about is what the people have to say. And this is what the people have to say. Dude, that was Ki-Adi-Mundi? What the hell? There's a battle going on the official Wikipedia page because Ki-Adi-Mundi made an appearance 40 years before he was born in the Acolyte. You mean to tell me Disney and Lucasfilm that Ki-Adi-Mundi was in on the conspiracy to cover up the Sith and didn't do anything to prevent the rise of Palpatine? Somehow, Ki-Adi-Mundi arrived before he was born. Maybe Darth Plagueis extended Ki-Adi-Mundi's lifespan in exchange for keeping the existence of the Sith quiet. Another one asks, can you explain how he appears in this series when he hasn't been born for 40 years, and why doesn't he remember encountering a Sith? Now, of course, here come the excuse brigade, but we have images that tell you how old the character was up until a few days ago. And now, it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant because these people like the show. These acolytes of Disney are functionally retarded. But you have people asking for the birth certificate of Ki-Adi-Mundi because they don't believe how old he was. Now, websites like IGN and other places are trying to read between the lines. They're trying to give this show the benefit of the doubt. But when you watch a show that's part of a franchise and a character that shouldn't be born shows up and talks about stuff that he acknowledged he didn't know in the future, what the hell is this? There's no excuse. It doesn't matter the ideology of Leslie Headland or what she knows or that women are the lead. Look, Lucasfilm, when you make a crappy show that is broken, structurally, thematically, canon-wise, people aren't going to line up just because you have minority characters and women in the lead. Stop making shows with women leads and minority characters suck beehole. That is why the show is reviewed the way it is. Not because people are racist bigots. You have produced garbage for 4 weeks straight, and we're supposed to blindly buy it because somebody else made movies that we liked 30, 40, and almost 50 years ago. When does it end? When do the excuses end? We all grew up with the Star Wars toys and the movies, and we had a great time. Then we all grew up and saw how crappy it is today. Star Wars used to be more consistent. Now it's just consistently bad. One has to wonder what will happen next week. How will the prequel trilogy be bent over next time? It's inevitable. It's Disney Star Wars. If you like it, or it makes sense, Disney will alter the deal. I'd pray they don't alter it any further, but I've lost all faith. It's insane that people will make excuses for this show. Each week it shows that it's created by really inept people who got a job based on ideals rather than qualifications. Oh well, that's modern entertainment. If you don't like it, support the independents. I'm an independent creator, literally just one guy. If you want to help amplify my voice to cut down garbage entertainment that doesn't respect your intelligence, back me. I'm the change in entertainment you want. So that's The Acolyte this week. It was bad. It's a lateral step from last week. There weren't singing witches, space lesbians, or a fire, but this week was not an improvement. This is Star Wars, and we need more than 7 seconds of action per week. So folks, what did you think of this week's episode? If you want to hear what we think each and every Tuesday night at 10 p.m., well, you can join us for the High Council. But we'll always have our review the following Wednesday here on WCBS proper. But I was disappointed, I was bored, and I didn't see anything I enjoyed. I do go in with an open mind, I do want to be entertained, but I haven't been, so why lie to the audience? It's not like Disney pays our bills, we make fun of them. Why would they? So folks, thank you for watching, we appreciate you, I appreciate you, and I'm going to ask you to do 4 things as always, but I'm going to add a 5th. First off, go to Kickstarter and back Wokebusters. We need your help to make it cross the goal and do a whole lot more. But always, be smart, be safe, be cool, and of course, be excellent to each other.